Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/JustNoMil. In today's episode, I think my MIL is in denial about everything, nervous about baby rabies. MIL hasn't talked to DH in 3 weeks, is losing her mind. I'm not allowed to visit anymore. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I think my MIL is in denial about everything, nervous about baby rabies. So this is going to be a long one. Sorry in advance. Just a note, my husband is extremely supportive and has a very shiny spine. He has been handling all the boundaries. There's way too many things I don't have the time/energy to write down, and he is a wonderful husband. My MIL has had a lot of trauma, which I feel very sad about. She had an abusive mom, lost her home to a hurricane a few years ago, and dear husband, DH, is her only child. She wanted more, but FIL said no. Being a stay-at-home mom, Sam, is all she knows. She has no interests, hobbies, or friends besides doing a little gardening or cooking. All she lives for is being a mommy and, someday, wants to be a super hands-on grandmother. That we are very concerned in her eyes means being a redo mommy for baby DH. DH recently talked to her about her doing more hobbies, and she said jokingly, "Well, guess I need some grandkids." DH and I don't really see that as a joke, and it really makes us nervous that she is going to try and be a mommy again with our kids. She acts as if we are still children, so we are nervous they will not honor our wishes as parents. For our multiple years of marriage, I've tried to be empathetic of MIL, desperately trying to understand her changing role. DH and I had a very quick relationship and met and married under a year. I had empathy with that and tried to ride the storm of all the irritating things, thinking they would smooth over in time. The constant unwanted advice, constantly giving me cleaning books for a Christmas gift, multiple occasions begging us to move across the state to them, her buying me lingerie to wear for her son, her trying to tell me what to do for my husband, including my job and career choices needing to revolve around him, constantly lecturing me/teaching me as if I were a young child instead of a mature adult, etc. I literally wanted to scream and pull my hair out from the overbearing mess, but desperately tried to be patient and understanding, thinking it would pass. There are lots of other issues that we think are stemming from her not being able to let go of her old role as a mommy. For example, when he went to collect his things from his old room, she would get angry and cry if he tried to take anything. She has giant baby pictures of DH all over her living room. He's almost 30. He's asked her if she wants more recent adult pictures of him to replace them with, and she's like, "No, why would I?" I also tried to be the kind of daughter-in-law she would want and help her not feel unvalued. I would ask her about her hobbies, cooking and gardening, to make her feel valued and important, and share things about my own life to create a peer-like relationship. But here's the thing, to me, she is giving vibes I'm just now realizing is not really wanting/liking me because I took away her baby boy. Here's what I mean. I had an abusive mom. Whenever I was vulnerable about what it was like for me, since she also had one like mine, thinking we could bond over it, she would tell me to just move on and get over it. That was within months of police having been involved for my mom's stalking and harassment. Later on, after that, MIL would in really inappropriate ways interject here whether how important forgiveness was for me and my mom, like a little jab that I wasn't as good as her because she did that with hers. Which, she had never asked. I had forgiven my mom already. She just assumed without talking to me, or that I hadn't because I still experienced anger and sadness over lifelong abuse I had just realized was there. When I had a death in the family, she said, "Well, at least you had warning." If there's any happy news, the first thing she wants to do is give me advice, instead of most normal people responding with, "Oh yay, happy for you." Whenever I share anything about my field and work, she constantly tries to come across as the expert and try to lecture/teach me on my own field. If I show her my work I'm so proud of completing, she gives negative feedback. Like earlier, I try to make her feel like the expert in her interests, hoping that fill the need to teach, but she doesn't let me be one in mine when I'm sharing my life. She constantly brings up my DH in every conversation, or if we're in person with DH, is always saying something like, "Oh DH, remember this? Oh Witty Garden 1605, DH can tell you about this memory he and I have." Think how a teenage girl would talk to her ex-boyfriend who is with a new girlfriend or something to rub it in their face constantly about their old memories. It's a really bizarre vibe that sounds like she wants me to feel excluded. I will say that as a once-in-a-while thing, is normal. I like hearing the odd memory here and there. But it's constant and it gives off vibes as "you don't know my son as well as I do, we'll never have our inside jokes, and never will have the memories I have of him." Like a weird competition. Once I decided to try empathy for her when she mentioned DH and holidays. Basically I said, "I'm hearing holidays are important to you. I think I'm also hearing there might be grief that things important to you are changing. I understand it's okay, you're still important no matter how far we are, let me know if you want to talk." And she was like, "Nope. Just reminiscing." I've tried for years to be vulnerable and create space for her to be vulnerable, but it's like a gigantic wall she put up. DH and I both have strong feelings that there is unresolved mess from her trauma she isn't ready to get help for. DH has talked to her, but she doesn't really see anything wrong, or at least anything indicating that she isn't in a healthy emotional place with what she says or does. I'm the one that has put in all the effort and kept persisting, and when I stop, because every interaction with her is negative, I kinda gave up recently, she does nothing. Apparently when that happens it becomes my fault because I'm not initiating, when it's a two-way street. When DH brings this up, she gives a BS excuse of, "Oh I'm afraid I'll say something to upset her," instead of taking ownership for her crappy, hurtful communication and getting help/change she needs, which we have been open and upfront with her about. I've done the hard work on my part, counseling/self-awareness and all, really trying to be a healthy and emotionally mature adult. I can't do everything for her, that would be enabling I think at this point. At some point you have to take ownership for your behavior, right? There's so much more I can't even go into. I know I can't change her, I'm just worried about what to do once there's kids involved. I am terrified of the grand baby rabies. Has anyone experienced something similar? What did you do? My best friend was in a situation like this and she came up with a rule: the relationship we had before kids is the relationship we will have after. That meant that all those folks who wanted to come over and pose with the baby or took an interest in getting in touch while she was pregnant only didn't get to come around any more than they did when it was just her. Your MIL takes no responsibility for her life. She likely believed being a wife and mother was her greatest role, which is fine, but she never grew with the role. She doesn't know how to parent an adult. She just wants the baby days back because she was the center stage then. She wants that feeling back and she likely does think being a grandma is how she will get it. I would drop the rope of trying with her. If it comes up with DH, he can say, "Well mom, I know you are very intimidated when it comes to forming a relationship with my wife. We have tried for many years, and we've decided it's better not to force things. You don't have to be close to my family." And then treat her accordingly. She finds out about pregnancies when the general public does. She doesn't get to spend any more time with you than she does right this second. Don't accept expensive or excessive gifts from her. If she wails about it, she can simply be told that she never wanted to be close before, so it's pretty crass to think she will get to be close now just because you have something she wants. MIL is an empty person. She never bothered to build a life or figure out how to grow relationships. It's so sad. But a person who has done this has to save themselves, because if you try to over-empathize you will just end up enabling them. This is the life she chose for herself with inaction. Let her live it. I also say drop the rope. You've been extremely understanding, well-planned and empathetic. You've obviously done your homework on how to talk to people who are struggling. You've given her every opportunity to see her new role, embrace it and work towards an adult relationship with her son and his family. She isn't going to do that. She's going to stay settled in her warped thinking that she's the mommy and you are an incubator for her next children. It's time for a game plan before the children are created. You need to have a very specific discussion with your husband about what he expects the relationship with his mother to look like if she continues to act the same way. Pregnancy announcement, pregnancy updates, birth plan, newborn care, visitation, pictures, social media, constant unwanted advice, babysitting. Literally anything kid-related you can think of. What's his plan when she oversteps? When does it become low contact? What does that look like to him? I wouldn't start a family until all of these issues are spoken of and a plan is in place. And you need to go low contact immediately. She doesn't need or deserve a relationship with you. Agree to seeing her a few times a year. Your husband can maintain whatever relationship he wants with her, but you've bent over backwards to get her to act like a mother and not like a jealous ex-wife. Limit contact. This woman isn't a friend to your marriage, a role model to your future children, or a good human to her son and his wife. She's too busy being the center of the universe and making herself happy at everyone's expense. What you describe is very common and we see it a lot here. It's nothing personal either. She would treat any woman like that because she does feel like you are stealing her baby. That's her problem though, not yours. We as parents try to raise our children to be smart, independent, and make good decisions. Your MIL is stuck in the mommy of a little boy phase, probably her favorite age of DH, as you only see pictures in her house of DH as a child and she doesn't even want to put up newer ones because it would spoil the fantasy she tries to live out in which DH is 10 years old and he's at school or out playing with friends and that's why he's not home at the moment. This is the lie she lives in her head. It's delusional. It's not uncommon either, especially with mothers of sons for some reason. She won't be interested in anything about you S&D. She even resents you some. Don't waste your time telling her about your job or anything like that, she won't hear it. She is probably conflicted in her mind because she can see DH is a grown-ass man, but she doesn't want to believe it. It's nothing personal with you. She looks for experts in your field to lecture you because she doesn't believe you are an adult either, and she is the matriarch/authority over you and DH because she is older. You don't need a matriarch, so she's extra. She wants you to forgive your own mom because she sees that if she steps out of line too much she might get the axe too. Next time she gives you a gift of something inappropriate like lingerie, look her in the eye and say, "Oh, how inappropriate. No thank you." And hand it back to her. That's a boundary that you will no longer accept inappropriate gifts S&D. It's a way to call her out while not being rude. Remember, she's the rude one here. She might have a fit and act out. Again, that's her problem to manage her own emotions. You cannot turn back time to make DH a little boy. She wants to be the most important woman in his life, not you. No matter how hard you try, you can't fix her. The best thing to do is live your life and stop trying so hard. You are only beating your head against the wall with her as she won't change. Don't accept her inappropriateness and don't let her hurt your feelings. If you have children, it will open up a whole other can of worms because she will want to relive her glory days being a mom of your child. She needs lots of therapy but doesn't think she's broken, so nothing will be done. It's not you, it's her. I know you feel bad for her, but you're trying way too hard. At this point, she probably thinks she can bulldoze over you to get to any grandkids. You need to decide on boundaries now, before you get pregnant. How many details she gets to know about the baby? I'd recommend being vague about the due date and don't tell her the name, she'll want to pick it herself. How soon after delivery would you be okay with visitors? How frequent can she visit? And if she would be allowed to babysit. You are not her emotional support animal, and neither are your future children. How soon is soon on the baby front? Because, honestly, your so may want to have a frank conversation with you MIL now as to what her expectations are regarding babies. Is she thinking that she will have baby while y'all work? Which, if you don't live close, may mean she has some idealized fantasy in her head that she will move in with y'all will move in with her, or hell, she may even be thinking that you'll pass baby over to her waiting arms as soon as LO is born for her to raise while you two go on about your lives. But whatever thoughts she may be having needs to be addressed now and often. I'm giving you so much applause. This is literally exactly what I was telling DH earlier today. Yes, 100% to all of it. You need to stop. You have done more than enough. You will always be the woman who took her son away. Unless you move next door to her and let her run your life, be a third party in your relationship and allow her to raise your future children, nothing will change. Even if you gave her all these things, it wouldn't be enough because you would still be there. Past trauma, wanting to have more children than you did, and being a stay-at-home parent who never grew out of the mommy role to have a real life doesn't mean you have to bend over backwards to try to make her happy. Your husband has a shiny spine and shares your worries, but my issue is, why does he choose continually talk to her about her behavior knowing she doesn't listen and probably not change, instead of doing more? You both seem to just think that her past gives her a free pass to be like this. There is no excuse for it, period. Your MIL is an attention craver, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. She wants you to continually reach out and try to get her to love you, she probably has no intention to. It's almost like she is emotionally abusing you. You keep going back and she gets the attention she wants, and she gets to treat you like crap. Her son calls her out and she gives excuses and her son still keeps in contact with her. This is all a win-win for her. Neither of you challenge what she says about grandchildren. Like we meant real hobbies, our future child will not be yours to raise, we want you to enjoy being a grandmother while we enjoy being parents. When he tries to take things out of his room at her house, he should say, I will not come back to visit this house until you get into therapy, this behavior is not okay. I've come here to collect a few things and your reaction is not normal. Then he walks out. You are trying so hard and are amazing to be so patient, but girl, rock that friggin' boat. If you both don't establish true boundaries and consequences for actions now, just wait till you have a kid. Starting this process now will lead to her either getting the mental health treatment she probably needs and having a better relationship, or she will go crazy further. Honestly, I'd rather her show crazy now before a baby is in the mix. You don't need to deal with the BS when you are postpartum. You need to let go. All the emotional energy you've poured into your MIL is emotional energy that you didn't have for something else. What to do once kids arrive? Boundaries. Start them now, by dropping the rope. MIL doesn't get to feed off your attention anymore. You have interests and a life that don't have anything to do with her emotional health or trauma. What her experiences may or may not have been might be a cause for some of her behaviors, but they're not an excuse. It's completely on her to manage herself. Focus on you, your DH, your marriage. MIL isn't yours to sort out, counsel, or otherwise manage. She never was. We had another starting point. DH's parents had no interest in us at all. If he didn't make contact, it could take up to 3 months until his father reached out to him. Can't remember a single call his mother gave him in 8 years. In fact, she even couldn't inform him when FIL had health issues as she didn't have his actual mobile number on hand. Imagine my surprise when my first was born and baby-rabies hit in like crazy. DH tried to ignore the fact that they treated us like children and tried to take over control. This did not work. We were forced to implement boundaries and they didn't take it well. It took DH 3 years to put his foot down with his parents. The damage that happened in between is irreversible. I am not sure if you like my advice. Don't proceed with family planning until your husband successfully implemented boundaries with his mom. These MILs are a fast train to PPD and more. I am deeply resenting my ILs by now for what they did when and after my first was born. MIL hasn't talked to DH in 3 weeks, is losing her mind. TW, potential suicidal ideations. Hey everyone, for backstory see previous post. DH told FIL he needed a break from his mom temporarily, told his dad he would take a month's break from talking to his mom, and told him not to bring this up with him until the next month. FIL a few days ago, end of September, texted husband and broke that boundary by casually stating that apparently DH's mom is suicidal, what we would say having suicidal ideation, because he has not spoken to her in 3.5 weeks. He says it's all because that we're playing games by giving ourselves a break of no contact. DH said the way FIL said it so casually and, oh by the way, makes him think it's more manipulative than honest, but honestly who knows? For context, the straw that broke the camel's back was that over a month ago, MIL told DH she wanted to make things right with me and start over, because she has been consistently a not great MIL to me over the years. I agreed, thought starting fresh was fine, and so she called. It started off fine, and then, I kid you not, MIL split suddenly and said, I wanted to see how you were doing, how work was doing, you have not called in 7 months, that is not how things are done around here, you need to talk to me more. She just started saying all sorts of things. It was like a switch had flipped, it was that sudden. I calmly told her that we had previously discussed that I had been the one doing 100% of work in the relationship the entire time since becoming married, and that she needed to put in her 50% as well, as I could not be the one to initiate all the time and carry a relationship one-sided. I reminded her that just as she is calling me now, she can call me and reach out more often. She then started blaming DH and saying he told her not to call me ever. Not true. She started blaming that she felt scared to reach out to me. She could not articulate why, despite me asking. I have not so much as raised my voice or said an unkind thing to her. She stated we didn't respond to something. DH did. She doesn't remember. Extreme exaggeration/inference. Please do not do this. Behavior equals don't be in my life anymore apparently, and a host of other cognitive distortions. My head was spinning. I told her that I was hearing a lot of blaming from her and that she needed to take ownership for her own behavior. I told her that we needed to end the call, as she had told me she was trying to create a fresh start, and that this was not what was happening. DH overheard the entire call. She was on speaker, and we both sat in silence for a minute after I hung up, as we both realized this woman was very unwell. Anyway, DH set that boundary shortly after, and FIL is trying to make him feel guilty about it. DH was kind, firm, and direct in saying that his mother's mental health is not his responsibility, and suggested, for the nth time, that his mom see a counselor for therapeutic help for her childhood trauma. A small win. DH set a consequence for FIL breaking that boundary and stated that he was extending that period to January, and if FIL breaks it again, he'll extend it for even longer. I'm exhausted, y'all. On one hand, I am extremely sad that this woman has been through so much trauma that not talking to her almost 30-something adult, married son for a few weeks is something that drives her to suicidal thought. If it is, I don't know if it's a manipulation tactic or not. I feel like it could be real. Who knows? I feel guilty for feeling relieved that DH made it clear we are not dealing with this. I do hope MIL gets help and healing. It's just not me or DH's role to be that for her. She has to do the work herself, right? Edit. I'm also wondering, is there any scenario where one could reasonably feel suicidal ideation for someone like an adult son not talking to them for a few weeks? My sense of normal has never been there, since being raised with an abusive family I'm now in C with, and now having this in-law family dynamic to work through. I have no idea what normal is and want to make sure I'm not talking out of compassion fatigue. Edit 2. Please note suicidal ideation is not the same as a threat to commit suicide. We have never been told she has made active threats to hurt herself, so we take this to mean she is simply having thoughts of it, which is not the same. We have much reason to believe she does not have a plan to hurt herself, and we do not think she wants to die, but rather we believe her inner pain from her trauma is so great she just doesn't want to live, even though she would never carry it out, if that helps. We firmly believe she needs serious help and have taken all the action pointing FIL to resources that can help her, but do not believe she is in imminent danger, hence our lack of alarm. Thanks. The 3 Cs to remember. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. You can't cure it. All you can do is take care of you. I love this. You guys separating yourselves from an unhealthy situation is the right thing. If more comments about her being suicidal come about, consider calling in a wellness check. Clearly FIL is not willing to take that step, but you seem correct in that nothing short of professional intervention will help this situation. We'll absolutely keep that in mind. Thank you. If she is trying to manipulate you both, then if FIL tells DH again that she's suicidal, ask if he's called anyone, then if not, tell him that one of you is calling 911 for a wellness check. Their tune will likely change right then and there. I'm sorry that you two are going through this. Be well, and take care of yourselves and each other. Hug. I am always shocked, I don't know why after reading thousands of stories, at how similar, almost exact, behaviors pop up with these ILs. My FIL did the exact same thing to my BIL. BIL is a police officer and was going through some pretty heavy stuff with his family/mental health, rehab inpatient stuff, and asked MIL to give him some space and time to heal himself before he tries to heal outside relationships. After 3.5 weeks she made FIL call BIL and say that MIL was in the hospital with a life-threatening condition. Call your mother, she's in the hospital, we don't know if she's going to make it this time. She derailed any progress he had made by forcing him to call her and interrupting his treatment plan. They don't care about anybody but themselves. Abs don't care how much stress, pain and anger they cause only if they get what they want. I would not believe her threats, but I would also text or email FIL as if you did believe her and put it in writing that you suggested immediate medical intervention, so if anything does happen they can't say you didn't try. If her suicidal ideation escalated to plans for suicide, the FIL can take her to the hospital. It is neither your job nor your husband's job. Some people with depression, anxiety, and/or personality disorders experience very strong guilt and shame. It's entirely plausible that she realizes why you and DH have gone no contact. She knows it's because SHE is a terrible person, or because SHE has acted in terrible ways. I'm not saying she's a terrible person, but that may very well be part of her internal monologue. If she believes that SHE is at fault, she could blame herself for her difficult feelings, loneliness, failure as a mother, shame for how she has treated you. The above very well may be a valid reason for suicidal ideation. Coupled with the thought they're never going to forgive me, MIL may think that no contact will never end and she'll never be a good mother, so why bother living at all? Or, and this is also very plausible, she wants no contact to end and is saying that your behavior, no contact, is causing her to feel suicidal. It's your fault she feels so miserable and you should change your behavior, and if you don't there could be dire consequences. Good luck. Sounds like a bunch of BS. Yes, it's entirely up to her. Your job, and DH's, is to keep those boundaries strong. Y'all are doing great. Thank you. You cannot heal another person. She needs to do it herself. No, feeling suicidal for this isn't healthy, but she's not healthy. She could be feeling that way. You ended your post with "I want her to find healing." She deserves healing. She does not deserve to hurt others in order to feel better. That is a common, but toxic trait among abuse victims, and it needs to be unlearned to have a healthy relationship. Thank you. That is such a lovely and kind response. Love. Suggest to Phil that Mil needs psychiatric help immediately. Suicide is no laughing matter and need professional treatment that is way above anyone in the family's pay grade. Let FIL know DH and you will happily talk to the therapist in regards to his mother's treatment. As I stated in the post, he did. We have been telling them this for years, but they continue to brush it off. We cannot force them to get help they do not think she needs. The only response to any of the suicide threats: if you feel she is going to act on these comments, you should call 911 and get help for her. We can't help her with a suicide threat, that is best left to professionals. It very clearly says I am not going to be responsible for her suicide threats, be they real or an attention-seeking behavior. If she calls up with some "I am going to kill myself" story, you call the police and have an ambulance dispatched to her house. What will fall out of this is one of two things: she is perfectly okay and just acting out with attention-seeking, and she learns that you take suicide threats seriously, or the medtechs figure out she is a threat to herself or others and bundle her off to some place where she can get treatment. No, it's not normal to feel suicidal because your child is NC with you. My guess would be that it's easy for her to blame your husband, in reality you, for making her ill. It's hard and probably impossible for MIL to accept that her illness is caused by the chaos in her head. Even if your husband were superglued to MIL, she would still be ill. Because she won't accept reality and FIL is enabling her, you need to keep your distance for your own sake. And you need to help your husband to accept that he cannot help someone who don't want to be helped. You and your husband needs to keep your boundaries and reinforce them. If not, you both will suffer as a consequence. Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed to hear this. I'm not allowed to visit anymore. This past weekend my in-laws came to visit us and our 3-month-old at a house we just moved into. Once my daughter was born, it washed over me we needed to move back to my hometown because I didn't know how to raise her without anyone we knew or trusted in a place I didn't know much about. I have a rocky relationship with my in-laws, and after they told us their expectation is they are going to see our daughter every month, my husband and I agreed on every other. As soon as they walked in the door, they told us they were planning to look for a house closer. I panicked, and when getting ready to go out to lunch him and I got into an argument that ended with the three of them going to lunch and his parents saying they don't want me around anymore. I was told to write a letter because they don't think they've done anything wrong and I need advice on if this is okay to send or does it come off as spiraling. I am sorry for the fight, husband, and I got into when you came to visit. It was poor timing to tell, husband, my concerns with you moving closer. I was told to write a letter to tell you why I feel the way I feel, because when he asked you, you didn't think you had done anything. To start, I don't feel like you respect our boundaries. For years when we first moved to previous city, we would invite you down Saturday and Sunday, and every time you would decide to just come Friday before we were even home from work. I am a private person and need time down after my work week, so would drive around waiting for, husband, to get home first because I wasn't comfortable coming home to you and not having the ability to come off of my week. This was never brought to your attention, which made me feel like my needs didn't matter, but also that you didn't respect our boundaries when we repeatedly would invite you to come Saturday and you would decide you were going to come Friday. The same thing happened when, husband, invited FAL to pick up his car. We invited him Saturday, and he just decided to drive down Friday and tell us he was on his way. When we invite you for a date or weekend, you always tell us your plan and don't seem to care what works for us. For a long time, when you would tell, husband, when you were coming, I was left canceling the plans we had already made with other people just to appease you. It got to the point where the people we were trying to make friends stopped inviting us to things. Another example of this is when daughter was born, we told both of our parents we wanted a week to be home and get settled. To my surprise, husband received phone calls every day pushing for when you would get to come. It put so much pressure on me to hurry up and be okay physically and emotionally to see you. Even this last weekend. We invited you for the day on Sunday, but you kept repeatedly pushing to come Saturday when, husband, kept telling you we had planned Saturday. Next, I hold a lot of anger that you told us it was creepy, previous friend, was our friend, but then chose to move blocks away from him, and destroy our relationship. We couldn't go to PF City to enjoy our friend, but instead everything had to revolve around time with you, including our ability to see him. PF even told us he felt he couldn't tell you when he was planning to visit us because you would suggest coming with, and he also just wanted the time we were used to having with each other. But then you pushed your way into PF and PF's husband's relationship, which husband, P and I talked about for years how it wasn't our place, we lost the one friendship that meant the most to us. People have come and gone in our life, but PF was there through it all. The main reason I backed off from our relationship is all of the mean and cruel things that have been said over the years. In the beginning, ML and I would sit up drinking wine and the conversation always circled back to trying to get me to talk about husband and my issues, or poorly of husband. I quickly learned this is not something I wanted to talk about with you, and so stopped staying up to drink wine alone. When we got married, all you could talk about our wedding was that my uncle didn't say anything about you in the ceremony, but told a story about my parents. That was out of my control, but you made us repeatedly feel terrible that it happened. So we don't bring up our wedding anymore. Then I was threatened in-laws' previous home location that if I didn't call a doctor and have husband put away, you would do it for me. Husband and I have worked really hard on our life together, and the thought that you would rip that apart was something I did not appreciate, especially since I did not agree with your diagnosis of him, when I am with him every day and would know if there was a reason he needed to seek help. This was the main turning point. After that, I decided I didn't want to drink like we used to or put myself in a situation where you felt that was okay. Husband and I at one point wanted to do dry January, which you told us to not even bother visiting if we weren't going to drink. After we bought our house, you came to visit and started ripping husband apart, just being mean to be mean. Husband retreated and went to bed, the saddest I've ever seen him, and I followed him in complete shock. The next visits after that were around you wanting to leave, FIL. For years, husband was told to be the bigger man and we would be pressured to go to events we knew from enough past experiences would end poorly. I stopped drinking at family get-togethers in general and was on edge because the chance we would be leaving at some obnoxious hour was more likely than not, but if we choose to just not go, we were made to feel bad, damned if we do, damned if we don't. When daughter was born, I didn't want to tell anyone when we were in the hospital, but husband felt he had to tell you, to which you said you do love us more after asking what my parents' reaction was and finding out I hadn't told them. It's not a competition. Also, to hear you were upset my aunts and uncles didn't talk to you at our baby shower. I'm sorry if your feelings were hurt, but that is out of our control. These are people we see maybe once or twice a year, and I have no say in who they talk to or not. To husband's point that I didn't even realize we didn't have you to the house for a year, in the moment I didn't see that, because we saw you every week for 2.5 years via late-night video calls that lasted anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. I felt suffocated by you. I don't talk to or see anyone else that much other than my co-workers and husband. You were shown all the projects we were working on, and knew all of the ongoings with us. At this point, I have so much anxiety around talking with you, my voice cracks or is extremely quiet or loud, and it feels easier to not say anything at all. Now that we have a daughter, it is even more important to me that these types of situations where things are never said/happen to her or around her about either of us. I said on Sunday that we want to teach daughter that her value is more than her looks. That is not saying you can't call her cute or beautiful, we tell her that daily, but I was trying to ask that you also tell her what else she is. Just because she is a girl doesn't mean all she gets is pink and dolls. When she's older, if she chooses that, it's up to her, but we are not forcing her to fit in a box because she was born a girl. Husband has told me he doesn't hold on to these moments because he has more good memories than bad. That doesn't feel like the case for me, which is why I think it is so hard for me to move past all of this. These are the examples I came up with, but I know there are more. I hope we can find a way forward that works for us all, where husband isn't taking our daughter away from me to visit you separately, as I don't think that is healthy for anyone. Don't send that letter. Who told you to write it? Your ILs don't care. They don't care how you feel. They don't care what you want. They don't care what you're comfortable or uncomfortable with. They want what they want and expect that you, as you're merely an extension of DH, who is merely an extension of them, fall in line. Don't pour your heart out to them. It'll only give them ammo against you. Find a therapist. Work on establishing and maintaining boundaries, including boundaries with your husband. He needs to maintain the boundaries with his family. 100% you don't have to explain why, you need to direct what will happen from now on. I'm sorry, but what? Who told you to write a letter? How old are you? Tell whoever told you to write whatever that you are not doing it. You're an adult and no one tells you what to do. Time to stand up for yourself. You're someone's mom, time to protect your child from toxic people. The fact that your husband still went to lunch makes me angry for you. Tell him he needs to pick a side and he needs to pick carefully. Screw him and his parents. Say it louder for the people in the back. This post got me really angry on OP's behalf. I just cannot understand people who let toxic people walk all over them. Your in-laws are pushy, but your husband is the main issue here. He doesn't do anything to respect your wishes and boundaries. Forget about our in-laws, let him know how he's messed up. The fact that you've been manipulated into thinking that this is your problem and you need to write a letter to fix it? Did your husband tell you to write that letter? You've got a husband problem, he's clearly siding with his parents, despite everything they have done to you both. You're second to MIL, and that's the sad truth. Fix your husband problem, and the rest can start falling into place with your MIL. YTF are you writing a letter to anyone regarding your child? You are your child's mother and do not need to explain shit to anyone regarding your child. Came here to say this. YTF are you writing a letter? Tell them all to pound sand, including your husband. Dude. No. These people have trolled you into thinking things can be better, and that it is your responsibility to carefully craft a letter so they can gleefully tear you apart line by line. Don't buy a ticket for your own execution. Ask your husband why his parents are treating you like this, and then ask him to get the to stop. And if he doesn't, and the don't, then excuse yourself from interacting with them. Not allowed to visit anymore, sounds like you and your BB have been threatened with a good time, OP. I'd allow husband to read the letter, don't allow him to send it, if necessary don't let him hold it, and tell him he's welcome to paraphrase to them and you'll await their apology. Sounds like he owes you one as well. Who exactly dictated you would write a letter? Dictated, that's the word I was looking for. There sure seems to be a lot of that going on here from day one. ILs burst through the door and commanded how often they would be visiting, negotiating it down doesn't matter, they still did the initial act, and it definitely sounds like so is the one who ordered the letter. Take that letter and shove it up the ass of whoever told you to write it. Rocky relationships will happen in life. Focus on you and being the best version of yourself. Cast shitty people off to the side, even if they're family. You're allowed to have dignity. This. Burn the letter. You should not feel the need to apologize for their feelings being hurt. Not your problem. Although if you're banned from visiting your toxic in-laws, that's really too bad. /S. I would not send this. If they did all this and still think they did nothing wrong, this letter will not convince them. Also, from reading this, the issue is mainly your partner failing to set and enforce boundaries. I would save this letter and bring it to counseling. Any visit should be put on hold until you and hubby get some couples counseling to help you two communicate with each other and come to an agreement about boundaries and how to move forward. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.